Namaste to all of you. Here I am today in Rishikesh. I come here and stay for months to contemplate, to introspect on the subject that I'm devoted to, on the subject that I write, on the subject that I speak about. And as I go deeper and deeper into the subject, how I realize as well as experience the importance of the third quotient of ourselves. As we all know, we are body, mind and soul. A composite integrated unit of three and not two. Why not two? Because most of us, 99% of the population of this world, or over 99%, is merely concerned with the body and the mind. They have no idea about the subject of spiritualism. Of course, in a hypocritical manner, we all use the word spiritual. We all claim that we are spiritual. We all use the word liberally and use the word soul and even abuse as far as the soul is concerned. Naturally, when you do not know the meaning of the soul, you are abusing it. Unnecessarily connecting it to the heart, to the mind, to the hands, to the legs. You can do anything. Soulful day and whatnot. So body, mind, soul and the spirit. The spirit and the soul. The spirit, of course, is the essence of the soul. Like water is the essence of the ocean. And not the waves and not the ocean. Yes, we may refer to it as the ocean, but no, the essence is the water. Like in the river, the water is the essence. And before I start on spiritual living, allow me to tell you a little about the subject of the spirit, that is spiritualism, which we do not know much about, or which we don't care to know much about. We think it's meant for the old. Not realizing the youth and right from childhood, we require to know the subject of spiritualism as much as we should know about mathematics, biology, chemistry, physics, art, music, any other subject. But the sad part is that every other subject is studied and practiced independently and exclusively. It's only the subject of spiritualism which is mixed with religion, motivational preachings, inspirational preachings by the mind, which are motivational, is purely to do with the mind, because that's where you make the effort. And the moment you make the effort out of a desire, it becomes mental. So, any motivational speaker, if he claims that he is spiritual, he may add any prefixes to his name. Okay. He may say he's a guru. Okay. A guru is a master. A guru is a master. And as per our scriptures, a spiritual master, not only a master, a spiritual realized master is called an acharya, Dronacharya, Shankaracharya, etc., etc. As a suffix, not as a prefix. So, the theory of spiritualism or the subject of spirituality is purely to do with the spirit, not to do with religion. Religion is its practice by the mind, but it's nothing to do with the spirit. Nothing to do with the spirit. The third quotient of our self. Our self is divided into three: body, mind, and soul. Nothing to do with the soul. All moral values taught by religion, good, bad, truth, lie, are all dualistic, to do with the mind, not to do with the spirit. The spirit or the subject of spiritualism is to self-discover. For that self-knowledge, in order to understand that we are spiritual beings going through a human experience. So the theory of the spiritualism is self-knowledge, to understand with clarity, and the practice is referred to as spirituality, like you have humanity, divinity. It's not a noun. Spiritualism is a noun. But when you start describing, it turns into an adjective and an adverb and a verb to flow. And that's what spirituality, humanity, and divinity is. In your acts of divinity, acts means to the mind. In your acts of divinity, you go towards the divine, but you do not become the divine. Sorry. The same way, all spiritual practices, starting from meditation, japa, mantra, prayer, tai chi, zen, reiki, you name it any, they are more to do with the mind. Meditation helps you a lot, physically and mentally. But if you think by doing 15 minutes or half an hour of meditation, you have become spiritual, so in fact it makes you egoistic and start telling everybody, you see, I'm doing meditation these days, and start gossiping about it. Physically, yes, it helps you to relax mentally and physically, but not spiritually. Spiritual meditation is totally different. It's to be constantly and effortlessly and choicelessly be aware from one moment to the next, which is called mindfulness. Meditative awareness existentially from one moment to the next in the eternal now. In the eternal now. So that is totally different. But tell me, who practices that? To be constantly in meditative awareness. So spirituality is the practice of the subject of spirituality. And now let's come down to, what do you mean by spiritual? Spiritual means it's that degree or the intensity of your awareness. How aware you are from your individual consciousness in order to expand, evolve, and effectuate towards higher consciousness. So in short, spiritualism means to go from lower consciousness to higher consciousness. To go from ego consciousness towards the soul, that is the highest consciousness. That's why it's called the pure consciousness, the witnessing consciousness, the witnesser, the soul. There's so many names given. And Hindu spiritualism, where it originated from, the Vedas, the soul is referred to as the Sakshi, the witnesser. So, that is what it is to be spiritual. But what is the spirit? And like I've said earlier, it is the source of your consciousness. the source of your soul. The source of your soul. The spirit is universal. The soul is individual. The spirit is the subject. The soul is the object. It's a notch less. Though both are non-dual, though both are in the purity, but this purity is a notch less because it's not universal. But it is absolute, it is non-dual, and it has entered into the mind, individualized into the soul, but the spirit remains aloof. The spirit is the supreme ability of the attributeless energy, the absolute energy, which is attributeless. It is not aware of itself. But when it enters the human mind, the soul checks and guides the mind. It cannot control the mind. The mind is uncontrollable. It's too phenomenal. So the nominal nominally enters into the mind, into the soul, and it is considered as the super conscious section of the soul. And the other sections are the subconscious section and the conscious section. The subconscious section, as per the neuroscientist, is over 98%. So the conscious section is hardly 1% or 1.5%. So the section remaining in the silent zone of the mind, where there are no thoughts, is left for the soul. That's why the soul is called dormant. That's why the scriptures, our ancient sages said the mind is asleep even while it is awake, and the soul is dormant. So through spiritual living, which I'm just coming to become spiritual is to gradually deactivate the mind from its discrimination, from its judgments, from its dualistic nature of everything, separating into the two, good and bad, positive and negative, happiness and sadness, etc., etc., and awaken the soul requires awakening, the mind requires activation. But when it gets activated, it starts chattering constantly, incessantly in your wants. There is no stopping the mind while it is awake. It is only silent when you are asleep. To be spiritual means to silence the mind. Meditation in reality means to silence the mind, not for 15 minutes like in transcendental meditation. That's just pure aspiration. For a little while to relax your mind, not silence your mind. And the misnomer is, those who don't understand this subject of spiritualism says peace, peace, peace. Shanti means peace. Like in Hindu scriptures, every mantra starts with Shanti and ends with Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shant is silence. Peace is the result. Automatically, if your mind is silence, your body and mind and soul, all three integrated as one, becomes peaceful. So we are not running after peace, we are trying to silence the mind, which is chattering and multitasking into this and that. We're trying to silence it. So spiritual living is the art of effortlessly silencing the mind. Effortlessly is very important. One very famous philosopher, psychologist, spiritualist, I don't know what names to use for the gentleman. Jiddu Krishnamurti, he referred to as choiceless awareness, because the mind chooses in dualistic manner between this and that, chooses for its self-interest and selfishly. That is why the soul is beyond the mind. There is no selfishness in this. There is no gender in it. The soul cannot be put into a gender, though it is individualized. But since it's absolute, it's not separated into male and female or segregated in any manner. So, it has no gender. No gender. Though individual, it remains non-dual and pure. Non-dual and pure. And spiritual living, when the soul is awakened, goes away from the mind, because mind survives on intellectual living. Intellectual living means from the memory and the intellect. Memory and the intellect. You are a rememberer basically in your lower consciousness. From your name, gender, to what has been imposed upon you, which you are imitating blindly, taught to you right from childhood, from your parents, from your friends, from your teachers, masters, gurus, institutions, and the government, religion. These are all what in the quantum, mind is the quantum of what you are, that you are made up of. It's the intellect. But spiritual is intelligence. It is connected only to intelligence. It comes in spontaneity without evaluating or analyzing. And the intellectual drives its energy from the past thoughts. Every thought is about the past projecting into the future. The spiritual is in the eternal now, in the present moment. The soul awakens only in the present moment. It does not go into the past. It does not require memory. It does not require any evolvement. It does not require any effort. It does not require any motivation. It does not require any inspiration. It is already the enlightened. It is already that divine within you. That is why we are mentioned as thou art that. Aham Brahmasmi. Tattvam Asi. Asi. I am Atman. Brahman. The true self, the soul is Brahman. Meaning, the true self, the soul, is the ultimate reality. The non-dual, the absolute energy inside your mind. You are that. And the mind is what you are. The body is what you are. It's the quantum of what you are, not who you are. So how badly mistaken you are when you say who you are with your name and gender. That's something which has been given to you. It's what you are. It's the quantum. So spiritual living is an intellectual, not intellectual living, it's an intelligent living. It is an intelligent living in order to understand, not to know. Knowing is through your intellect. Understanding is through your intelligence. Like I've also said earlier, that there are a number of students taught by, or a number of disciples taught by a guru or a master. Everybody will understand in a different way. The degree of understanding will depend on its individual intensity of awareness, which is termed as intelligence. So, intelligence creates understanding, and understanding is the root of life. Understanding, not knowledge. Our scripture said, in fact, they went so far as to say that knowledge is darkness. You become a scholar. You do not become a discoverer or an inventor or a scientist from that. You remain a scholar, adding prefixes, being very proud that you are a doctor and an engineer. But out of thousands of doctors, you will find very few intelligent doctors. You will find 98 or 99% of them as intellectual doctors with a degree. They pass the exams by cramming. By cramming. So, intellectuality is by the mind. Intelligence is by the spirit. So, spiritual living is how to expand your intelligence, and that comes through. I've spoken on other previous YouTubes of mine or video clippings of mine saying that intelligence comes through spontaneity in a non-dual manner, instantly. Eureka! The scientist says, I've got it. I've been trying to get into this answer for years and I've not been able to do it through my mind. But all of a sudden, bingo! I've got it. So that's what intelligence is. All successful people, according to me, are intelligent because they're very alert and attentive. So what does the spirit do inside the soul? Inside the soul. The soul, if it is awakened, it utilizes the spirit to make the mind aware. And after that, if the mind is attentive, it becomes conscious. It becomes conscious. And once the mind is so smart, once it is conscious, it does it very carefully. Like if you're going to a certain destination, you're very conscious about it. If you're going to repeat that destination again and again, then the subconscious takes over. The mind goes on to auto mode. It does not require the conscious section. Forget about the soul, the superconscious section. It does not even require the conscious section. And the subconscious is 98 or 99% because we are all working on auto mode, not knowing what we are doing. To the extent that we are slaves and puppets of our own mind. Our mind says, do this and we do that. Our mind says, say this and we do that. Say it. Take this and we take it. Whatever our mind says, we do it. Like I'm doing my mind says to my hand, do this, it's doing that. So we are slaves, we are puppets of our own mind, but we'll never say I am mind. We'll never say I am thoughts. We'll say like my mobile or my shirt or whatever, I'll say my mind, my shirt, my mobile phone, my chair, my glass, my tumbler. It's your instrument to use, but you're being used by it. So how sad. How sad. And people say that the subject of spiritualism is meant for the old. Very sad. It's meant right from the young, right from school, to be taught the way we are taught mathematics. If mathematics is necessary for the material world, science cannot do without mathematics. Like Albert Einstein said, if Indians or the Hindus had not discovered zero, probably we may not have made any scientific discovery. All mathematics starts with zero. Shunya, nothingness, zero. It can be quantified. Add 1 0 to 1, it becomes 10. Add a few, 10 or 15, it goes into billions and trillions. That's how zero is. It can expand to anything. And that's what energy is. It constantly expands into nothing, nothingness. We all appear from that nothing and disappear back into nothing. Shunyata, nothingness. That is what everything is all about. Everything comes out. Whether the sun, moon, planet, stars, anything, it comes out from that shunya, goes back into that shunya. Shunya means zero. And it goes in a circle, that's why it's a circle. Energy moves in a circle. Whirlpool, seasons, mountains, the earth circling, the moon circling, everything is circling. Energy moves in a circle, in a random manner. In a random manner. Infinite, eternally, limitless. Limitless. So spiritual living is intelligent living. It is how to open your third eye. How to open your third eye. And the essence of that, like the essence of ocean, what I said is water. The essence of that is understanding. Because understanding beautifully utilizes the intelligence and the intellect together. Both. integrates into one, and that is what we are saying. Body, mind, and the soul do everything intelligently and understand, which is a combination of both. So, spiritual living, effortless living, effortless. For that, we have to have a mind focused, centered, single pointed, to become conscious, to become conscious. It slows the mind, slows the mind, because mind is totally material. By evaluating and analyzing selfishly, we have expanded and evolved dramatically, hugely, tremendously into the material world. Science has done wonders technologically, digitally. It has done wonders, but for the material life, it does not understand metaphysics. It does not understand what it cannot observe and measure through mathematics. These two are the fundamental requisites for science: observation and measurement. Both have been given by the Vedas. Vedas means knowledge, the study of knowledge, how to utilize knowledge intelligently. That is what the Vedas is all about. That is where spiritualism originated from. So, the first is to be focused, centered, concentrate. So, to concentrate effortlessly from one moment to the next. For that, you require proactivity, spontaneity. For the mind, you require not proactivity. The mind always reacts in emotions, in desire. The mind reacts, the spirit proacts, spontaneous, intelligently. The mind will always react, think from its past. Now, what shall I do to counter this situation? Thinking in self preservation for its body and mind. So, in spiritual living, you are more proactive, you are more instantaneous. You do not think too much on the results. You don't think too much about the results. If you think too much of the results, it will purely be for your personal gains. You do it because for the love of it. I am devoted to the subject, not for this personal gains, not for it for acquiring name and fame. For that, I'll have to have a turban, I'll have to have a tika, I'll have to have a robe. I'll have to enhance my personality, my false persona. Personality means persona in Greek. It means a false mask. I'll have to create a false mask over myself. I will not be able to be on my natural self. I'll have to add prefixes. Gurudev, Shri Shri, what not, Chinmayatush, I don't know, what all. So, you have to express yourself. You have to inculcate. You have to exhibit. You have to exhibit characteristics like humility, gratitude, appreciation, giving credit to others, being thankful to others. That's what gratitude is all about. And how does it all start? With contentment. That is why Osho, one of the great spiritual masters of this world, openly claimed that I am for the rich. I deal only with the rich because the poor I cannot. They live for survival. The common man lives for survival. And that is why 98 point whatever 99.9% I would say are blind followers today. They're all material. They're all thinking of survival. They're all insecure in spite of all the wealth they may have because they have zero spiritual knowledge. So contentment is the first sign of entering into the subject of spiritualism. Please, if you are not content within, do not take this subject seriously. You have to be content. Like Maslow said in his hierarchy, law of hierarchy, first we require food, clothing and shelter. First we require food, clothing and shelter. Then, after we have achieved that, then we think of name and fame and relationships. And only after that should you think of self-actualization. Only after that. Self-actualization. Then you wonder, now what? Now you have gained name, you have gained fame. That is why all Hindu gods have been kings and princes. Those who understood spiritualism, those who were taught spiritualism by the sages. For the common man, the message of the spirit, the metaphysics, was not possible to convey. Spiritual living was more meant for the affluent, for the ones who could become content. Who could become content. For the common man, you require human gods. You require superstitions, supernatural fables, rituals, traditions, dogmas, caste, creed, whatnot. That's what religion is all about. When it's practiced to the common man, it has to be diluted. The common man is not interested to know what is the spirit. That is why Osho claimed openly, I am for the rich. I am for the rich. I am bored of my 109 or 110 Rolls Royces that I have. I don't even know the count and I'm not even bothered. It's for my disciples to enjoy the richness which I create. Which I create. Spiritual living requires simplicity after you are content. Simplicity, humility, grace, respect. These are the characteristics of a person who is living spiritually. Not by talking about it, not by talking about it, not to condemn, not to criticize, not to judge others. How to silence the mind, the chattering mind multitasking to this and that, how to silence it. Not for 15 minutes, by being aware, all the time, constantly. First being aware of the body, then being aware of the mind, and then being aware of your soul as to how awakened it is. How awakened it is. So that's how it is. So spiritual living is not to curtail desires as propagated by you. That desire is the root cause of suffering. Sorry. Root cause of suffering is not desire, because desire is basically the fuel of the mind which you cannot live without. Like a car cannot, $1 million car will not function without fuel. An aircraft will not function without fuel. Likewise, we also are mechanical in our body and mind. This mechanical machinery requires fuel, and that is desire. Desire to eat, desire to live, desire to do whatever, desire to sleep. How can you Eliminate desire. To be desireless, they say. Nonsense. How can you be without desire? You can't. You cannot. So it's not that. So it is, suffering is, I would say, because of ignorance. And ignorance of what? Of the spirit. Ignorance. The root cause of suffering is not knowing the subject authentically, not understanding the subject of spiritualism. Not knowing, I'm talking about understanding. Not understanding, which creates disharmony and divisiveness through excessive material living. Excessive. Because spiritual living requires balancing of the spiritual and the material. It does not require to be totally spiritual. Sorry, you're already totally spiritual in this way. You are a spiritual beingness going through human experience. You are that spiritual waves of energy in the form of spirit. So, while in the mind, integrated with the soul, you have to be aware of that divisiveness, of that disharmony, of that imbalance between the mind and the spiritual. And how do you do that? How do you do that? Most important part now, spiritual living comes. The most important and the one and only part, the one and only role of the Sakshi, the witnesser, is purely to observe. Self-observation inwardly. Constantly keep on, be always alert and your third eye opens. The moment you are alert, your third eye opens. Constantly self-observe your thoughts, your feelings, your actions. That's how it is. Keep observing, self-observing inwardly. Inwardly. Outwardly is different. When you observe outwardly, it will be the mind because it will be dualistic. Inwardly will be non-dual because you are observing choicelessly. Choicelessly through the soul. You're just observing, like the moment you start eating too much, your soul awakens and tells you, don't. But your desire is too strong and you do not listen. Your emotions are too strong and you do not listen. That's how it is. So self-observation is via the soul. That's why it's called the witnesser. That's why it's called the Sakshi. That's why it is called the Sakshi. So spiritual living is to be an inside observer. To be the inside observer constantly, moment to moment, without any constraint of space and time. Because you always need to remember that the inwards your body and mind expresses, and the outer reflects like a mirror reflects and reacts. So whatever you are expressing from your inside, it is reflected from outside. If you are negative, you will see negative. If you are positive, you will only see positive. If you are good, others are good. If you are not good, how can you see the goodness of others? You will not be able to even perceive the goodness. So the inward expresses and the outer reflects and reacts. Thank you for listening. Namaste.